So, the original title of the talk that I submitted was how to not fail with React Native, but during the preparations I realized that what I really wanted to talk about and what the talk was about were the things that I wish I knew when I started React Native. So it might be a little bit more beneficial for beginners than for talks, for pros. Okay, so background, my name is Robert Prosenc. I'm software developer for nearly 20 years now. I work in Vienna for a company called the 25th Floor. We build custom web applications. We have some data warehousing. Currently we are working in automotive, so we do quite a lot of different stuff. And half a year ago we started with a mobile application for a client with the goal to have truly native behavior on both platforms, which meant that we could not use technologies like Ionic that use web views. So we decided to use React Native. Actually, we were using React in other projects for quite some time by that, so that was a good thing for us as well. The project was done agile. We had sprints of 2 weeks. We were quite eager to show off, and after the first weeks we delivered good start for the app. 2.5 months later it looked like that. So the app is for TUI, it's in the stores. It's for searching for vacancies and for booking them. The talk here is based heavily on what we experienced with building this app. Okay, just a short question. How many of you are using React Native? So what's the ratio of pros and others? That's really good, because I have some slides about what it is. Okay, so let's rush through that anyway. So React Native is a JavaScript framework. Of course, it uses React, but it gives you applications that do real native rendering for both Android and iOS. It is open source for 2 years by now. It was released exactly 2 years ago. It's in production for 3 years, built by Facebook. And it has one main idea. It's not, although it uses React, the idea is not to recycle your web application code, if you have some. But the idea is to learn once, write everywhere. So to apply the ideas that you know from React, but build applications that comply with mobile UI and interaction principles. Because it's just a different thing to have a web application on a big screen and a small screen on the mobile device. Technically, the short version is the difference between React and React Native, where React gives you a virtual DOM, and it drives that to render the browser DOM. React Native does something pretty similar. It just doesn't drive a browser DOM, but native components on the targeted platform. So there is some kind of communication between JavaScript and native components inside such a mobile application. There is a main thread responsible for the UI, for delivering 60 frames per second, snappy user interface, good user interaction, and is a background JavaScript thread that runs your application, that can do some heavy lifting, that can block from time to time, and to communicate internally over a pretty narrow bridge where they just exchange information between the two realms. And so that way the UI is not blocked when the JavaScript thread is a little unresponsive. Another advantage of that system is that you can take the JavaScript part and just move it out of the device and let the JavaScript be executed by a browser, for instance, or a Node instance, and do this communication over WebSockets, which actually is done. This is quite useful for debugging, so you can run your application when you're in dev mode on your PC. You can run the application Okay. Okay. Yes. Do you hear me? No. Ah, so better? Oh, yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's used for development actually. You can run your JavaScript code in a browser in a debugger and still have the UI on the simulator. So the next two slides I compiled not to be read. Okay, you do not need to read it. I just wanted to show that it comes out of the box with quite a bunch of components, and the next slide, APIs that can be shared between both systems, Android and iOS, and only a few that are system specific. So that's for components, and APIs there is even more shared stuff. Out of those APIs, I'd like to stress out two. Both deal with the problem of having animation calculations that require constant updates in the interface. There is this animated, and layout animation does pretty much the same. So the architecture allows to move your animation calculations to the UI thread. You just declare what kind of transition is to be done between values, basically. And the frame-by-frame calculation is then done on the interface. Also to bridge that communication between the two threads. This is really, really handy. It works pretty well as long as it does not is used for direct interaction, because when you have direct interaction, you slide around, you move lots of things. There still is a lot of information that has to be passed from the UI thread again back to the JavaScript thread and so forth. So this will not work well enough for interactions. That's one of the main problems actually by now. Yeah, and talking about this native part. Just a second. React Native comes with a lot of native components that can be utilized from JavaScript, but it's pretty easy to wire up your custom native components. So if you have any requirements that cannot be solved on JavaScript land, it can always be done on the native side, so in Objective-C or Swift or Java for Android, and be wired up. The JavaScript part of the wiring is really short. It's just there is a method, a module that takes the name of the component on the other side. Actually, it's the manager on the other side, and it does it. It does work afterward. That's the easy solution when there are no properties. But basically, there's a good documentation, and it's not magic. So with that. There are also lots that enables people to write their custom native components. So in the ecosystem for React Native, you'll find JavaScript components, JavaScript only components, but as well as real native components that you can use. Okay. So one thing that I had the wrong assumption when beginning with the project was about styling. I didn't think about that. It was like, yeah, there's React, and with React there is virtual DOM, which means somehow in my brain there happened to be this thought, yeah, there is JavaScript because there is some kind of DOM, which was not quite that. Because there is no CSS there, which was a decision by the guys of Facebook. They had pretty good reasons for that. There is on the first JSConf when they released, or actually when they published, announced React Native, they explained their reasons for not using CSS, which does make sense. But on the other hand, there's a bad news. There is no CSS. So you have only some basic styling possibilities. with that. So there is some positioning, left, top, width, height. Quite not long ago, a width of 100% or a percentage value for width was released. So before you had to calculate your values in pixels. There is Flexbox, a native implementation for Flexbox for layouting stuff, font, colors, borders, but no really fancy stuff that you know from CSS. So a design that starts up like that, in our case ended like that. The differences are small, but actually when you look really close at it, it starts to feel somehow not so nice then, especially this price thing there. That one, I hate it. Yeah, actually we could have handled it with kind of a hack, actually, a couple of possibilities, but it just wasn't worth it for us. But it would have been good to know it before and to have designs that respect it in some way. That not every fancy thing is easy to do. Another thing about styling is just with that missing of CSS. There are no CSS classes, of course. So it's inlined, and it's always using JavaScript objects. So CSS is part of your JavaScript implementation. Or styling is part of your JavaScript implementation. To build applications for both platforms will probably mean that at some point there are distinctions to be made. For some UI concepts work differently, or some implementations are to be treated differently. So there are two ways to differentiate between the platforms, Android and iOS. The first is the platform module that can be imported and then offers either a string to compare MI and iOS or MI Android. The other possibility is the selector, which takes an object with data for iOS and data for Android, and it is selected at runtime. The proper values are selected at runtime. The other possibility is at build or package time by defining file name extensions. So the packager will take the Android file, when it packages an Android application. Still, the component is required by just the name that it has. Okay. A few words about the tooling. React Native comes with a handy CLI, just a node package with that for a new project. One possibility is just to initiate a new project. And waiting some time, and then just start it. And it'll open up everything that it needs. That is on the system, of course. And you want to run it on an iOS simulator, you need to have one. Yeah, just can select the concrete version. Talking about simulators, for iOS development there is the simulator packaged in Xcode. So for that you need Xcode. For Xcode you need Mac OS X, and for Mac OS X you're gonna need a Mac. That's the current state. Yeah, you can use a virtual machine for it, but if you want to use Mac OS X on a virtual machine, that requires you to use a Mac build under that. And for Android, there is a huge bunch of virtual devices that you can download. One thing that is just like you may know from React is the hot reloading that works just the same module component. Redux store can be reloaded, so you can work really neatly. Once the simulator started up, you really can use hot reloading, so there is no compilation steps in between or something. Just save your files and. Talking about the simulator, there are some options that can be used. One, for instance, is this remote JS debugging, what I said before, but running the JavaScript in another process, actually, like in the browser, that you can utilize the console, which is better than nothing. Then there is an inspector, where you can see some basic information about the components at runtime. There is a custom application, the React Native debugger. It's much better than the inspector. It's just a Chrome package with a bunch of React debugging extensions. It's really neat. So you can look through the whole virtual DOM, search by components, can inspect the Redux store. There still is the console. Yeah, iOS without the Mac. That's the point. Basically, it's not possible. There are ways to do it. The easiest one probably is use the Expo client. That was that project has a cooperation with Facebook that was announced, I think 2 weeks ago or something. So the idea behind that is that you can code just your JavaScript code, and there is a client readily on the application on the devices that will run it. So you just register your application with Expo, and you can find it within the Expo client, or you can inject it directly. There are several possibilities. Another thing that I just found out a couple of days ago, I included it because I think it's just cool, is Sketch by Expo. It's kind of CodePen or JS Fiddle. It's an online service where you can write your JavaScript, where you can write small tests, basically, for React Native with a live preview, with drag and drop of components. And to start it up in the device, just scan the QR code, and there it is. So it's really an amazingly fast possibility to play around and try things out. Fun thing. The ecosystem available for React Native is, well, of course, parts of the React world. Everything that does not utilize the DOM can be used. So Redux, Funk, whatever, everything without DOM connections. Lots of JavaScript components, and quite a couple collections of native stuff. Okay, so that's for the basics. Let's go on to the pitfalls. So following slides are now about what we experienced with that. And the first and biggest problem that we had was the navigation. If you just ignore the lag in that was recorded on a heavily freaking out machine. But when you look at it on the navigation, there is quite a lot of stuff going on when it's not lagging. So things are changing. There's always the tabs below. The stack cards in and out, tab navigation below that, and we had to do quite a lot of manual work to get to that, because at the time we started, we did not find many components and everything, and actually. Yeah, nothing that would do us, well, not much help. But anyway, so for the navigation itself, we had to implement it distinct for Android and iOS. For iOS, there is the navigation experimental that we used in parts. For Android, we used a third-party wrapper around toolbar Android component. So complete different approaches, actually. And then for this tab bar over there, we had to implement it basically by hand. So this just a higher order component. For these action menus, we found a third-party library that we could wire up for that. That collapsing header, which is probably better in this situation, is a problem that we tried to solve with this animation API, but that's a good case where you just hit the border, actually. Because it's not only about animating, it's also about the information that flows back, because there is this sliding of the user, there is this position of its fingers, and there it just, that bridge between the two realms is just not quick enough for that. The lag here is again much stronger because it's recorded on the simulator in dev mode, but there is still on the real application, on the real device, there still is a lag that can be, well, that's really annoying, actually. There are a couple of components we found in the meantime for that. There is that collapsible navbar that seems promising. A colleague of mine is experimenting right now with that stuff. Well, I don't know, we'll see if it fits. Another thing was the bottom navigation. That's also written completely by hand. Yeah. So the components we found in the last couple of weeks that would or might help, that are promising. There is the React navigation that was released, I think, beginning of March. It handles everything from JavaScript, so it's not a native component. It looks quite nice, but there's still, all of them is the problem of customizing it with these action menus on the right side. So for simple navigations, it's probably the easiest solution, although they still have an issue with the animation of in the left top corner with the name of forget it. It isn't perfect. That's the point. Yeah. I don't have the video, so it should be described. The native navigation is a native implementation that works much better, of course. There is, but it's from Airbnb, but it's in beta still. So quote Airbnb. They have lots of tests to do. One of them is to use it in their Airbnb production application. Once they've done that, I think it's shown that it's production ready. Until then, I'll not use it. I would not use it. The React Native navigation by WIX is also in an experimental state. Collapsible navbar is just quoted here again. So all of them are not really ready. So this navigation stuff, this navigation problem, somehow still stays. Okay, enough for navigation. Yeah, model view. You can have only one native model view, something I didn't expect. So that led to the fact that we had to implement the routing only for the modal view, which is stupid, because we needed it in several situations, and as it seems on the native part, it's organized with kind of a singleton or whatever, So you have to reuse your model. You can just throw it away from the DOM and make a new one. It will still be the same. So, 2 routers. And yeah, I put slides for the calendar actually. It was a stupid thing with the calendar. We needed one for selecting of dates, for selecting of date ranges, and there were a couple of components available, a couple of JavaScript implementations. There was one that looks quite promising, that was customizable. So it was actually, there was only that choice to use a third-party component. So, and we wanted to go quickly on, so we took that, threw it into the application. It was quite fine. But then there were new requirements, or slightly different requirements. It did not need much, actually. It was not like something completely else. It was just slightly different, and suddenly started to get really complicated with it. Also, in that concrete case, the sizing of the calendar was implemented in a way that didn't allow it to just stretch out when you change the view mode. So the short solution was to just disable landscape mode, although the whole application worked in landscape, but only because of that one component we switched that off. And actually, to get it doing what we needed it, we spent so much time that we thought probably if we just started in the beginning implementing it completely by ourselves, it wouldn't cost more. But time was spent, and now it's in. Okay. Another interesting thing, typing and API documentation. Our app was, so our part was the app only. We did not build the backend. We just utilized the public API that was there, state that it had. And we actually did not have any documentation, which was a fun thing to find out stuff. But can be done without problems. The point is, after we reached some level of complexity, we had the problem of not knowing what kind of data comes in. So that was about the point when Patrick Stampfer joined the team, and he forced us to type everything. So it took us a couple of days to type the whole app through, and especially the API part. And I can really recommend that. It's really cool to just know what comes in when you're handling bigger objects. That was really a good thing to have it typed. Yesterday I was asked whether it's possible to use TypeScript because of this typing. We did not, but I think for the next project we might even try it with that. So just to have really strict typing everywhere. It's really a good idea. Another thing we did think about from the beginning on, but somehow there was always something that was more important, and the APIs always delivered, was always working, until at some day there was some problem with the API, and we had a situation that a side effect brings the app into a state that's dead end, and which what's no problem with a web application, because you just hit reload as a user. There is no reload button in a mobile application, so the user would be required to check what's happening and to manually kill the app. So it was just a couple of minutes, but I think that's something that should be taken seriously. Never let your application get stuck in some dead end. We had quite a couple of performance problems. I'll mention here the funnier ones. So first thing was when we tried out a real Android device for the first time. It was a shocking experience because in the simulators everything went quite fine, and suddenly on the device it was painstakingly slow. It was just it was a horror. And well, that's the first thing that's quoted on the React Native documentation for performance problems. There is a development mode on Android that better turned off because it makes the application really slow. So that was an easy one. There was another one. The iOS simulator has an option for slow animations that can be activated via hotkey, which happened at some random point during development by chance, and suddenly everything was in slow motion. It was a little shock as well. And the third thing that I think was funny, we observed kind of spontaneous drops in performance, mostly when we were presenting the app to the customer via Google Hangouts. So the reason was quite easy. When we moved the browser to the background, or the tab to the background, the execution of the JavaScript in this tab got a really low priority. And every time we were looking at the customer, we just lost most of our execution priority for the app that we were showing. So that's a stupid thing, but yeah. Another thing is, of course, console logs that can slow you down, especially in Android, when you're heavily logging, for instance, with some Redux logger, that can slow you down. There is an extensive list of performance issues in the documentation. I just wanted to mention the funny ones that will happen suddenly, and you will not find anything in the code because they are not triggered by that. The last and the biggest pain that we had and that we still have is with upgrades. So the basic problem with upgrades is when you check out a React Native application, you get the React Native modules and all dependencies in JavaScript land that's easily upgradable. But it creates a project, the whole project structure for Xcode and for Android, depending on which platforms you're using. And to upgrade these, it's not so easy. There is a tool for upgrading that. That's via the documentation. Just install it, just run it, and you end up with a big, messy merge conflict. Because what's the reason? With, for instance, Xcode, you don't have only your source code files, but there is a lot of meta information, a lot of project information for Xcode, structured in a way that is not really diff-friendly. Generated files that have to be updated, generated files that probably were changed because you changed something in your project, like added an icon for the app that must have been done within the Xcode or within, so like icon cannot be changed from the JavaScript because it's an app thing. So these conflicts can get quite messy, but they can be solved in finite time. But it can go worse. It can. So, for instance, now with the version 43, we are from 40 to 43. We cannot update because there is some change in the Android package, and the upgrader just stops. There is not even a conflict message. There is an issue on GitHub. It's known. It's not fixed yet. So it's really, that is a real complicated problem, and yeah, something that might be better. Another thing now was, that's quite a recent issue, actually. For instance, with upgrade to a certain version, that's the version we are on, we lost performance quite highly because reasons. So that's something that I personally do not like that much. But for that you get your still your Android and iOS applications built with JavaScript. You have to wait it. Okay. So much for the ugly sides. Deployment, on the other hand, can be quite easy. There is one app that helps you with distributing beta releases. It's the Hockey app. You can just register users, and they have their own Hockey app client. And whenever you push a new app through this system, not through App Store or Play Store, but the Hockey app, they get notified and can install the app. So this way you can distribute beta installations. There is fastlane. This is a complete automation pipeline for everything: packaging, signing, publishing. You can automate everything with it, even taking screenshots for your application. It's really cool thing. And there's a third possibility, namely to push only your JavaScript code. So once you have your app through the store, a process that takes like a day for Android. In our experience, it was like 2 or 3, I think it were 3 days in App Store, so still quite fast. But as soon as the app is out, there is Code Push, and App Hub Deploy does probably the same. Code Push is a Microsoft service with which you can register your app there, and you can push just the JavaScript code out to the clients. So whenever you publish a new update, you specify some point in flow in your application where it checks for updates, and all your app installations will just pull the new code. And if you do not want to use the Microsoft systems, because you have to use Microsoft Cloud for that, but there is an open source server implementation for that as well, available. So you could host the whole infrastructure by yourself and just push the JavaScript updates. A couple of weeks ago, there was an issue with Apple with this kind of code pushing that was on the news, but it was not about JavaScript. It was about pushing real compiled, real bad code to the application. There is another system for iOS applications that offers basically the same thing, and it was that system that they kicked out. All applications that use those APIs were kicked out of the store, but pushing JavaScript code is completely compliant with the App Store guidelines. Okay, deployment. So what's there that could take you away some work? Well, first, the third-party components as we found them half a year ago. It was more of a set image. Probably it's in parts. It will not have changed so dramatically. So although there are a lot of components available or open source, many of them serve just one purpose. Many of them are just for one operating system, which means they are either that serving only one purpose often brings the fact that they are not generic enough, so you cannot customize stuff probably the way you want it. Where we always have somehow the situation that we need things a little bit different. And yeah, actually, out of those many components, that's my personal opinion, I found quite only a few visually really pretty. But that's half a year ago. Now a lot of better things came. There is, or came. Some of them might have been there as well half a year ago, and I just didn't find it. What I would do now, starting again with a new project, there are a couple of boilerplates that help to just start from zero, that bring you examples with Redux, with a good router, or with a good test setup. There is Snowflake for that. There's Pepperoni, it's quite similar. Uses also the React Native starter kit. And there is a generator called Ignite with which you, so with Ignite you don't check out and copy some code base, but it's a generator command line interface you should generate in your repository. Give me that. I think that's a good way to start, actually. There are some collections of components. There's native base with lots of cross-platform components. They also bring a sketch plugin that can be used for designing before starting with the implementation. There's JS Coach with a React Native part. There's that Expo client I talked about before. They offer a lot of custom components, especially stuff for device APIs like accelerometer and such. There are these native components by WIX. These are just really, they look, for me, they look really pretty. Snappy user interface because made natively. And there is a material UI component that works on iOS. So if you want material design on iOS, there is an implementation available. One good source of information is documentation. It's not fully written, but still it's a good idea to just get through it in the start. And there is the curated list on GitHub, the awesome React Native with tons and tons of resources. Those are real thumbnails of it. Okay, so because I've been asked that yesterday, I think it's a good end question. Would I use it again? Because there were some ugly parts that I've been talking about. But I really enjoyed it working with React Native. It was really fun. And so I would say, I would definitely take it for the next project. Come on. And that brings us to the questions part. Do you have any questions? Yes, let's start here.
What's the average size of the application?
That's a good question. The question was, what is the average size of application? I never looked at the size of the packages, actually. But no, I don't know, but I wouldn't expect it to change strongly from the very smallest version with only a little of JavaScript. So you have the overhead of all those bridge components that will always be there. And well, whatever you pack into it with your assets, actually. So if your assets heavy, then it will increase on that part. That was a question, was that? Oh, sorry. Is that sufficient? Okay.
Well, what was the size of your team that were working on the app?
The size of the team was about 5 people.
And
changing 4, 5. We have Patrick helped us with exactly one component and with typing of everything.
And those 5 people were working those 3 months on the first version of your app?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, not all of with one of them was a designer, so she was responsible for that we really follow the guidelines, the user interface guidelines, and that it still is acceptable by the client, which seemed easier in the beginning and grew harder the more was there to see. And one was the project manager, who did some coding still. It was a great help, but he was not full-time involved in coding. Yeah?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
You were used Agile, so did you have as well a Scrum Master or Iteration
Of course.
Manager?
No, we have a Scrum Master.
Scrum Master. Is it included into that
No.
4?
No.
Okay.
No.
So he did not coding, or she did not coding.
No, she does no coding at all.
Oh, thanks.
No, that's important for us, actually. So Scrum Master is completely separated from this, just to help the team with whatever issues arise.
And you have
All
2
steps.
iterations, right?
2 weeks iterations. Yeah.
Separated with coding, but what did you use? Jira or Trello?
We have Jira on one side, and we have a big wall, a physical wall
Sticky
for
storm, yeah, all right.
for the actual tasks. Then. So stories are maintained basically in Jira, but when the sprint starts, Jira is over, and it becomes physical.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Yeah.
I wonder as a team how you split your responsibilities. Like everyone was responsible for some component, or some people were responsible for actions and reducers and other for views, or
Basically, we try not to do that. It happened because Patrick was as an external. He came with a clear goal, so he made one big part of it. That was his. But between the others, there was not really a separation. So we also tried to do as much pair programming as possible, and we do not tend to separate code ownership as far as it is possible. Depends on the project.
I would like to also ask, when you talked about navigation, you said that you used navigation experimental for iOS and not for Android.
Yeah.
And why is that? Why didn't?
I have no idea. I have no idea anymore, actually.
I wonder if it was not usable for Android or
Yes.
Did you try to write your own UI-specific components, or did you just look on the internet for?
You mean for?
You said that you had problems or several problems with your UI components that you could handle. So did you try to implement your own, or something that is already made, or did you just look?
Well, it goes always hand in hand, actually. So when we found something that was usable, yeah, great. But especially in case of the navigation and all those parts, we had some components that we could use, like for this action context menus, but we had to wire everything up by hand. And for this tab navigation that looks a little bit different on Android, for instance, in the detail screen of a venue, that is coded completely as a high-level, high-order component, as well as the tab navigation on the bottom. That we coded that. Yeah. Yes.
So we get to understand the previous question. It means that at the end of the day, you have only one application, but the same design patterns for both platforms. So the application will look like the same on the iOS and Android without any changes.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. So you can apply changes as you wish, where you wish and need them.
So to divide business logic, just share the code and change only the visualization, yeah? So the business logic is the same?
Exactly. Yeah. And it can stay in the same repository. You don't have two repositories, and I included some modules or libraries that are somewhere else.
Yeah. And what's your experience with using some native stuff from operating system like native notifications? It was correct?
We didn't try it.
So you're not using batch notification and push-up notification?
No. Basically, they should work.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you consider Xamarin over React Native?
But I didn't understand the first part.
Xamarin platform, Xamarin for
Xamarin?
multi-platform development.
Okay, no, I don't know that. Okay. What we tried a couple of years ago was Titanium by Accelerator. That has a similar approach. The idea is the same. Like you have some JavaScript client stuff and communication with UI. But where I can't say much about the state of Titanium now. The state 5 years ago was problematic. Simply saying.
C#.
What's the other?
Xamarin is C# multi-platform.
Okay. I think maybe I've read about it. Yeah.
Yeah. When you basically write, also you have one code base, and you need to implement some UI-specific stuff, like for handling the UI, but you code only in C#. So it's similar approach to React Native. Use just because you want to handle some code.
I think, yeah, I've seen that shortly.
Do you know what's the state of developing apps for macOS?
Finally,
Do you know what's the state of developing for macOS? Is there toolkit available, libraries?
what do you mean specifically? Like with React Native or?
Yeah. Because generally we are speaking only about the mobile development, but it should also work for developing on the regular operating system.
Ah, okay. I'm sorry. No, I just didn't realize you were talking about OS 10. Okay. No, actually, it's not. It's for now. It's only for mobile, as far as I know. So I have no idea what's the state for. Does that answer the question? You do not seem to approve.
Well, I heard that there are some libraries already available but I don't know what's the state, so I didn't realize.
No. What I read what's something different is that Microsoft is working on a Windows Mobile part for that, but didn't come across for desktop applications. Was there something that, yeah, please.
Have you experienced any pitfalls when you try to use a library that you would normally use in Node.js or web, but it didn't work for React Native?
Did I understand you correctly? A library that I would use regularly somewhere else or would not?
Yeah, a library that works for instance, works in Node environment and also works in a browser,
Okay.
but wouldn't work in React Native.
Well, we did not have something because we used a couple of stuff, but as long as it does not utilize something that's not there, like the DOM, if it's React, not on Node, I see no reason why it shouldn't work. So we used a lot of middleware for React that worked just with no problems. Do you have something in mind, something special?
Well, some communication protocols, some libraries that implement a client for a communication protocol, for instance, that might rely on some low-level stuff that are implemented both for browsers and Node, but not for React Native.
Okay, it depends on how they communicate out of their environment. Actually, so I don't know. One would need to try that out. Yeah. There was a question here. Yeah.
So I believe it's an amazing job. So I agree with most of the things you said. My question is, what about unit tests, functional tests, and if positive, how did you integrate with the build and deploy process?
Okay, that's a question that hurts.
Sorry.
So to be honest, here we have really just some basic unit tests for some logic, some rules within the user interface, especially with the calendar, where there were just constraints which you can use. You can't use something in the past because you're looking for something in the future. The interval has to fit. So there is no big infrastructure there. We use Jest, and it worked basically by the book. So.
Yeah, because as far as I understood, you use also Redux. Or
yes.
So yeah, I was wondering if you were testing also the actions and so on. So because you mentioned also Snowflake, and Snowflake is basically a boilerplate, including also tests relying on Jest. So that's why I was asking. And also, I agree with the build and deploy process. Actually, yeah, I was wondering if you connected it with the build and deploy process as well. So.
Okay, well, no. Well, maybe we have, I don't know.
So basically, you're just building, packaging, and deploying.
Yes. But I will check that out later. Because the whole deployment chain was not done by us, by the core team. So it was like magic that happens and is there mostly. That's a good point. But yeah, I can't imagine it's not included actually. It's strange. You're welcome. Yes, over there.
How did you handle with different script parameters like size, orientation, or pixel density?
Oh, that's a good question. I can answer finally. No, seriously. For such layering things, the Flexbox is quite useful, and you can get the values of the device you are running on at runtime, actually, but we did not bother mostly with calculating that by hand, but we used really Flexbox where we could. So
between no CSS and yes CSS.
Like good parts at least. Yes?
Yeah, I have a question. What platform have you migrated before from? Have you been all the time the JavaScript developer, or do you have experience?
Oh, okay. Me personally. Well, I've done quite a lot of things, but yeah, last time. Now I'm doing Java, for instance. I've moved on to another project. Last year, what did we have? Some Java as well, PHP, lots of JavaScript. All our web applications moved from 10 years ago heavy backend to now heavy front-end clients. Everything happening in the front-end.
Maybe before you started with the React Native, have you experience with Android or iOS platform?
Oh no, definitely not. So we none of us. So in the whole company we had no native developers for mobile platforms. That was, and we did have lots of experience with JavaScript development and recent experience with React. So that was one of the points for us why we chose that approach with React Native.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yes?
I'm wondering how much of a code, of a native code in Java or C# is currently in your app, or is there any?
Oh, that's an abstract question. What?
Or did you need to write those native modules as what you were talking about?
Okay, well, we did not write a single line of native code.
So your whole app is just React Native?
Our whole
JavaScript?
app is dependencies.
Oh, of course.
React Native.
Okay.
So, but as I said, as I shown with the navigation, it might prove to be not sufficient. So some situations are really only solvable with a native component. But the whole app is plain JavaScript, or our source code is plain JavaScript. Ah, yeah. Sorry, it's so dark over there.
What was the project time overall and roughly the budget? It's not a secret.
I don't know if I can say that. I mean, I really don't know if I can say that publicly.
So the time you spent developing?
The time was 3 months for, let's say, with this shifts, 3 full developers.
And did you have some previous experience with React Native, or it was with the learning curve included?
No, that was included. And it was really from the beginning on. And yeah, but it went really well. So as I said, after 2 weeks we had an application with a search, with live data, with a detailed view of the results, with several tabs, and with lots of information. Yes?
So does the app feel like a native app, or can you tell that there are quirks in the UI?
That's something you cannot ask me actually, because I see every quirk like so huge. Because I'm, you know.
Yeah. So what are the user reactions? No one has complained.
The reactions were really positive until now. So the things that annoy me so significantly are actually not really did not come back as feedback from users.
Great.
It is great, yeah. I'm glad for that, yeah.
What is the name of the app?
The name is not nice. It's TUI Hotels. You know TUI? No? Okay, so in German-speaking countries they are quite strong with hotel booking. They are quite present on the street. They have lots of small shops everywhere.
You know some like famous apps which are written in React Native?
Okay, I just kicked that slide out yesterday. I have it still. Let me look for that. Which one might that be? I guess like. So I have just 4 on that slide. There are lots, actually. First one is the Facebook Ads Manager. It's the ad that was developed where React Native was developed for and in parallel. So it's running React Native for 3 years now. In Facebook there is one module, at least one I know, that's implemented in React Native. So not the whole app. And Instagram and Airbnb use it partially as well. And there is this list on GitHub where you get like really huge amount of popular apps that use it. I can say what I was just thinking about right now, what percentages of apps that are built completely React Native versus using it just partly. I don't know, that might be interesting probably, but interesting point is that you can use it as a part of an existing app already. So if you...
What does it mean partially?
That,
does it mean partially use it and
that
partially not? What is the rest?
The rest is a native app.
Native app?
So like Facebook, like...
Sorry.
No. So like Facebook, there's a huge app with, I think I've heard last big figure, 1,000 engineers working on it, completely native for both platforms. But they can't just search a logic to it. They said, inject one module, so to speak. Module is probably not the proper phrase for that. Okay, any more questions? Yes?
What version of React Native do you currently use in your app?
0.40, the one with the Android bug. because there is another issue that prevents us from upgrading to 4.3. For now. Yeah?
Did you experience any issues, performance issues with stylings between Android and iOS? Or basically they were...
Not especially because of styling.
So basically all the views, all the sub-views were rendering as expected without any lag or delay apart from bucket issues.
Yes. What we experienced was that there are some differences in measures, in pixel measures, or like there is this big blue menu we have, and it for this margin for the content, it actually is a different one on the platforms. Yes.
Do you have the deep linking functionality?
We didn't use that now.
So the build components for navigation?
There is something like that, yeah, I've read that, but no, we don't use it yet. Maybe in the next version, we're working on that.
And what was the reason to use React Native? Why not just using the
Several.
The browser? What was the selling point for React?
Well, the selling point is only one of the reasons.
But the people
not the same.
Want to use the real native application, or what was the reason for?
You mean as in opposition to that view approach?
Yeah, to simple web application. That you can open
Okay. Well, it was an idea to just try it out with one specific use case, more or less one specific use case, by a tool from Germany. The application itself that they were relaunching just at the time is mobile able. So basically that need they have fulfilled, but they wanted to see how it will perform when they have really a native application in this store. This was kind of a mixture of experiment and just another channel to the table.
What is the result of that experiment?
I don't know yet. Well, one of the results is that there is a second project. So at least on customer side, it worked well enough.
And you can still access your application from the normal web browser in your phone. Can you compare it? How does it perform compared to the native application?
Yeah, it's much slower actually. So there's even on the browser on the computer. So don't need perform for that. But actually it's bigger as well. So with the application we have just one thing.
But you are sharing the code.
No, there is no code sharing between the website. That's an important point. Good that you asked.
Not even the logic?
No, nothing. Nothing. Well, okay, there are a couple of lines, small ideas shared. For a reason, well, not more a case switch, a switch statement. Okay. There was no other way than that, but the web application is an Angular application actually. So it's really two words. So all we use is the API.
Thanks.
Welcome, yes?
Do you have some experience with native script?
No. You're the next.
Did you have to drop some stories from the backlog just because of the React Native limitations, or just you had spikes and investigate?
There is one thing that had to stay in the queue for now. It's the toast message, the bottom, because it's completely incompatible with the bottom navigation. So that's something that is waiting for a solution from somewhere. Yes, but it's at least we were lucky that because that's not such an important thing. Well, okay.
Something that, yeah.
It would be really nice to have it as a for the user interface part. Okay.
Yeah, so my question was, can you use the Chrome profiler and the other performance measuring tools?
Yes. Yes, because it's when we're talking about Xcode, which we're a little bit more than now on Android part. It is an Xcode project.
So if there's a performance problem, you
all
can
your profile
find out
tools.
that which part of the code is wrong.
Yeah.
My question is, what is the percentage of shared component code between iOS and Android? Let's not count Redux and such, just component code.
In our project?
Yeah.
It's huge. So the shared code is there's a huge part of it is shared. There are like I think 3 or 4, not more than 4 situations where we had to deviate. But most of it is a common base. Yes?
Were you ever in doubt during making of the project, like if it wouldn't be better to done natively?
No.
Can you laugh?
Like that question.
Can you laugh once more? It really sounds true.
Now I can't. Yes,
Did you use some caching or cache-based mobile database system like Realm or SQLite or anything?
We do no cache, so we have no caching. We do utilize the local store, so the async storage, it's called that, but no caching. So because we thought it does not make sense because the platform is about booking vacancies that can be just not there anymore 5 minutes later. So caching there is somehow.
Yeah, but very often you come to a list of items and you just check one and you go back to the list.
Yeah, it's loaded again. It's always live data. So when it's taken, at least you see it instantly. Or actually, in that case, you don't see it anymore. There was some brainstorming about caching. What would make sense, like cache for 5 minutes or an hour? Like, what's the period that makes most sense? But for now, it works well enough without caching, and there's still enough other stuff missing that's more important, like analytics. A couple of. So, yeah, looks like there are no questions. Are there? No, it's just questions. it's you. Just kidding. Okay, so, well, thank you very much. And I think there is pizza and beer. And enjoy the evening.